Hi, I'm Andrea with the whole kit and caboodle. Today's question comes from Terri in Lubbock, Texas. Terri asks, why is this a good time of the year to cut glimmer cardstock on your die cutting machines? To answer this, let's head to the cardstock room. Before talking about glimmer cardstock specifically, let's talk about what is cardstock. So cardstock is typically made with a combination of hardwood and softwood materials. So every mill uses a different ratio, and that's why some cardstocks are different than others. Cardstock is typically between 65 and 110 pounds, which makes it a little thicker and a little more durable than your normal printing paper. And if you've ever wondered how to weigh cardstock, that weight is calculated by taking 500 sheets of a paper standard size. So the standard size for cardstock is 20 by 26. So 520 by 26 sheets weighs, in this instance, 80 pounds of the Glimmer My Colors cardstock. The joy and the beauty of this paper is you see that beautiful pearlescent coating, and that's added after the paper has been created, and then it goes through a process in which that glimmer is added. Now, by adding that glimmer, it will obviously change the texture and change the way a paper cuts. One important thing to keep in mind is the reason why we use My Colors cardstock is because it is made specifically for cutting. So it's specifically made, and that ratio has been fine-tuned to create a perfect cut every time. Saying that, I can't tell you how often I'm on social media and I'll see photos like these pop up that nothing is cutting right, they can't get the intricate cuts to work. What am I doing wrong? I'm going to give you 4 tips that will hopefully help you create a perfect cut with your My Colors Glimmer cardstock every time. Tip number 1 is humidity. This is the biggest and best way to solve a lot of your cutting issues, especially if you're cutting the Glimmer cardstock. Now, I live in Indiana where our summers are very humid and very hot. So our humidity levels obviously go up inside of our space as well. Now, I have an app on my phone that is tied to my smart thermostat so that I can tell the exact percentage of the humidity in the air. So when we're having days of bad cuts, the first thing I do is go to that app and check the humidity levels in the space. Now, ideally, you want that humidity level to be in the 30s to low 40s. That's the ideal percentage to getting a great cut with your Glimmer of My Colors cardstock. Because that glimmer is added afterwards, it obviously has a different texture and it makes it just a tad softer. So the drier the air, the better the cut. And that doesn't mean that you can't cut your Glimmer cardstock in the summertime. There are ways to combat that. One of the things, obviously, is to get a dehumidifier. So especially in the summertime, to run that to make that space less humid. Because in here, in the summertime, inside of our facility, it can get up in the 60% with that humidity levels. The next thing, and probably the easiest thing and the way to combat that humidity, is to take your plastic storage bins, place your cardstock in that seal-tight storage bin, and add a silica gel pad. You know what I mean by that. Those are those little teeny pellets, those little bags that come when you buy some shoes or you buy a purse. And the whole purpose of those is to absorb the moisture. So slip one of those in there, and that's going to help draw the moisture out of the paper. Now, if those little gel packets have been just hanging out on your counter or in a drawer, they're always absorbing the moisture all around. So once those pellets get full, they stop absorbing. So think about that if you are going to use that as your solution. You can dry them back out. If you place them on a cookie sheet, do them long and low temp, so about 170 degrees for about 30 minutes, and all that moisture will be zapped back out of that packet, and then they're good to be reused again. Now you can get these on Amazon in bulk at a pretty great price, but if you don't have that readily available, you can also use kitty litter, because kitty litter is designed to do that exact same thing as well, right? So take a little bit of kitty litter, wrap it into a cotton little pouch, stick that back into that clear plastic bin to help draw out that humidity. So tip number 1, watch the humidity levels. Tip number 2, when you are cutting the Glimmer collection from My Colors Cardstock, is to pay attention to your cutting mat. Now here in the office, we use the Cricut die cutting system, so we are going to talk about the Cricut mat specifically, but this would be applicable to any sort of die cutting mat. For the Cricut machine, you want to make sure you use the standard grip. And when you put down that Glimmer cardstock, because of that extra texture that's added to the top, you want to make sure that you always use a brayer. So we are going to take our brayer and go all over the surface of that cardstock, making sure we get that snug fit every time. That brayer really makes a difference in getting that snug fit, because if it moves even a minuscule portion, you're going to get a bad cut. So always use a brayer, always use the standard grip. Now you want to make sure that you never use a brand new mat when you are cutting the Glimmer cardstock. Remember, as I was saying, that they add that Glimmer coating after the cardstock is created. So because of that, it has a slightly softer texture. And if you see here, portion of that cardstock can peel apart if you are using a brand new mat. Now, that's not a big deal for the cardstock itself. You're still going to get a good cut. Your mat just won't last as long. So we don't want to leave these little particles of residue that will shorten the lifespan of our Cricut mats. So make sure that you use a mat that's already been used a few times when you are using the Glimmer cardstock. And following all of that, you can see I've cut some really some triangles with the really sharp points. If I peel this off my mat, you're going to see, and you always want to peel the mat away from the paper. You're going to get a better peel off every time. And look at the little teeny triangles that we have created with that Glimmer collection. There's no fraying, and it's a perfect crisp point. Tip number 3 is your cutting blade. So if you have checked the humidity levels, and if you've checked your mats and you're still not getting that perfect cut, chances are it's your blade. So if you're using the Cricut die cutting system, we always suggest you use their fine tipped, their fine point blades. We know they're a little bit more expensive, but trust me, they're worth it, especially if you're doing a lot of cutting of the Glimmer cardstock. Now we keep a log of every time that we change a blade. So if we're not getting a perfect cut and we've checked the other 2 options, we go to that chart to see the last time that the blade was changed. Now every machine and every blade is going to have a different lifespan. Here in the office, our machines cut about a solid 40 hours a week. And our blades last between 4 and 6 months. So obviously that's going to change for the home users, but that's kind of our average here. So by keeping that log, we know exactly the last time that blade was changed. And if we're not getting a perfect cut, we know to change that blade. So my tip to you is to create a little chart and always log when you're changing the blade. That'll help you know if it's time to change that blade to get a better cut. Tip number 4, check the dial on your cutting machine. We use Poster Board Plus for almost all of our cutting here in the office. If you go to your dial and select Custom, you can change that setting to Intricate. So I'll type in the search engine here, Intricate, and we'll find that cardstock for intricate cuts. It has a default pressure, but you can also change that to more or less. More will cut it twice. Thanks to Terri for this week's question, and thanks to you for tuning in. We'll see you next Wednesday with more tips and tricks. Happy scrapping!